Hey class, my name is Ishmael Perry, and this serves as my leadership philosophy presentation. Here's the agenda for this presentation. First, what is leadership? Then, developing a leadership philosophy, leadership traits, leadership principles, and lastly, my leadership philosophy. Leadership is the ability to provide purpose, motivation, and direction. It is a duty, not only to those under your direct management, but to all whom require guidance. You can be a leader to anybody. Leadership goes beyond management. A leadership philosophy is a personal belief system that shapes a leader's leadership style. For this slide, I'll share a personal story with you that takes me back to maybe the years 2011. I was a specialist in the United States Army, which gets just a little bit more respect than a private, not much at all, but just a little bit respect. But I had earned my promotional status, right, which means that I was going to be a sergeant in the United States Army. Well, before I become promoted, I had to go through what they call Warriors Leaders course, right, which is basically how they teach specialists how to become leaders. In this course, I developed my leadership philosophy. While developing my philosophy, I had to look at my values of leadership. I had to identify and address my traits. And ultimately, I began asking myself these following questions that drove my leadership philosophy. So the first question is, who am I, right? Essentially, I am identifying the type of leader that I want to be, right? What are my current personal traits, right? And how can I use those, my strengths and weaknesses, right, to become the type of leader that I want to be? Do I drive change and do I motivate? Now, these two questions are one and the same, right? Well, do I drive change as in, do I inspire innovation? Okay, can I inspire innovation, right? And if I can, how will I do it? Do I motivate? Okay, there's a difference between genuine motivation and false motivation. In the military, you hear it a lot: fake it until you make it, right? Well, there are some leaders, okay, in my military career, I think I had about maybe one or two who actually inspired leadership. The leadership was seen through their actions. They did not have to speak about what type of leader they were, right? They were able to motivate the entire platoon. All right, what is leadership? Okay, I had to identify it. I had to understand what leadership was to me. Um, After several boards, I came to the conclusion, as I said in the last slide, that leadership is the ability to provide purpose, motivation, and direction. All right, and then last question that I asked myself is, what are my core beliefs of leadership? Right, essentially, what does leadership mean to me? Once you begin to develop your leadership philosophy, you begin to identify or you begin to elude certain leadership traits. Now, leadership traits are a person's characteristics. Okay, it's different from principles. It's different from the philosophy. It's different. Okay, traits are your characteristics. What are your leadership characteristics? Okay, from a leader, you should expect to see you should expect your leader to be, or I would like, or from myself, I would hope that I exude traits of loyalty, duty, respect, selfless service, honor, integrity, and personal courage. Now, again, these traits are deeply instilled in me from my years in the service. So, of these, I'll hit on my two most important ones. Okay, I'll say it's definitely. I'll give you three. I'll say respect, selfless service, integrity. I'll give you four: respect, selfless service, integrity, and personal courage. Excuse me. So, of those four, I believe that integrity is definitely number one. All right, everyone, regardless of leader, position, style, rank, color, race, should always ensure that they are being honest. Okay. We have personal courage. See something, say something. Okay. We have voices. We have powerful voices. You speak. A part of being a leadership. A part of being a leader is looking out for those around you, not just those underneath your supervision, but in general, everybody. Personal courage. If you see a person doing something wrong, you say something. Um, Selfless service this is a big one for me. So what I like to do to give back to community, I love to build. I love to build houses. I love to do my own home renovations. So what I do is I dedicate, I think there are 26 weekends or maybe 52 weekends in a year. I try to dedicate maybe 20 of those weekends with Habitat of Humanity, building homes, right? Because that's what I love to do. I learned to do that when I was in the military back in Fort Hood. I'm sorry, Fort Bragg, North Carolina, and I kind of sort of carried that into my civilian lifestyle. I told you guys I'll give you four. We will look at respect. The golden rule: treat others how you want to be treated. That is a big part of leadership to me. Leadership principles are the core beliefs and guidelines that shape how a person leads others. They serve as a moral compass, and more so like a decision making process, an internal decision making process for leaders. It helps them ensure that they are acting morally, ethically, regardless of what position they find themselves in, or regardless of rank. Okay, now a person may ask, well, what is the difference between leadership traits and leadership principles? Well, leadership traits are the qualities that that person displays. Okay, they are inherited and developed characteristics, whereas leadership principles, they more so wrap around what a leadership believes and does. All right, it guides their values and it guides their actions. All right, leadership principles are often applied in leadership situations, and they're adaptable and flexible in roles and environments. Now here are some of my leadership principles. Um, of the eight you see in front of you, I feel that I feel that the most important one is to be technically and tactically competent. The reason being is because we must because we need more doers. All right, we need more doers. I pride myself on the fact that whenever I find myself giving guidance, to anyone who asks, I always ask, well, what are you doing with your life? What can you be doing with your life? I try to make sure that I encourage those. I try to make sure I encourage people to read. Okay, I tell them, hey, you read. You have to become a master at your skill. All right, so those are one of my leadership, and I think that also stems from me being an engineer. So in my day-to-day life, I'm a network engineer coming from the military, United States Army. And I've always just that has always been instilled into me, even as an NCO and a soldier, to be tactically and technically proficient. I'll cover one more that is important, and that's the first one: lead with integrity, not authority. All right, if you lead with integrity, you will not have to tell people what to do. People, as I mentioned in the last slide, people will be enamored by your leadership presence. They will inherently want your guidance. They will ask you what comes next. Please lead us. Always strive for greatness is my leadership philosophy. As short as this philosophy is, it packs depth. In my day-to-day actions, I ensure, or I feel that I do not let adversity, obstacles get in my way when I'm completing tasks. I try to go above and beyond when I'm doing tasks for other people. All right, when I am leading an initiative, leading a project, I try to make sure that across the board, everybody is tracking that. Listen, we have to do our best. Mission comes first. Okay. Um, Always strive for greatness. To me, means that regardless of what you're going through, regardless of what's happening, you must keep going. You have to. You have to motivate yourself. When you're feeling depressed, you have to motivate yourself. This is how you achieve. This is how you surpass plateaus. It's how you achieve new heights. I know there's a cliche saying that the star is the limit. Well, I often tell people that, how is the star the limit when there's galaxies out there? There's galaxies past these stars that we see. All right, so it just goes back to always striving for greatness in everything that I do. Um, that goes back to my core traits: loyalty, duty, respect, self-service, honor, integrity, personal courage. All of those come into me doing exuding those traits and in surpassing levels. In conclusion, I have shared with you all what leadership is, which is the ability to provide motivation, purpose, and direction. I've shared with you guys ways to develop your leadership philosophy, questions that I ask myself, right, that has helped me develop my leadership philosophy. I've shared with you all my leadership traits, principles, as well as my philosophy. I hope this presentation has been informative for you. Thank you.